Yes, hi, hello, welcome to Gooncast, episode 3. I'm James, also known as Saber0307. Kat, I hate you.
You love me. I'm Kat, also known as the Attack Cat. I'm primarily a QA tester by day and a horror writer / aspiring comic artist by night. You may have seen some of my emotes on Saber's Twitch channel, and there will be more of those to come. Lee, I love you.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, what's going on, folks? Lee Alder, the Valley Jester, horror fantasy writer, and currently writing in my head the epitaph that will go on my gravestone because this experience nearly fucking killed me. For context, it was the live-action film of Erased that we just finished watching, so we're all a little thrown off, but we'll dig in. We'll dig a pit for ourselves on that one later.
Yeah. So this episode is going to be about all things Erased. For context, I am the one who has been pitching and suggested this. So our first ever podcast talked a lot about Twin Peaks, which is James's baby that he's been pitching and hoping people would join him on for a while. Similarly, Erased is kind of mine. It's an anime adaptation that's very, very near and dear to my heart. And I had not really explored too much of the other adaptations, and I thought, why not subject myself and my friends to that?
Kat, I hate you.
We all have, obviously all of us are writers, and we're all very experienced with, watching films, especially watching adaptations. And I figured it would be a really cool podcast episode if we went through, starting with the Erased anime. We're going to talk a little bit about I read all of the volumes of the manga, and then we're going to segue into the two live action adaptations. There's a Netflix TV show that is 12 episodes, same as the anime, and then there's a 2-hour movie that we just finished watching that also has a very interesting story of we couldn't find it for a really long time.
And I wish it stayed that way.
It's buried for a reason, let's put it that way.
I wish I could go back and revive and amputate my head with a hammer before I asked Weeb Mama if she knew where to find it.
Oh, did Weeb Mama unleash this upon us?
I told Weeb Mama about it, and she was like, I had no idea there was a live-action Erased movie. Are you talking about the Netflix show? I was like, no. I'm talking about the live-action movie that is a thing. And then Weeb Mama hit up our mutual friend Riku, not to be confused with Niku, but this is Riku with an R.
Or Rio.
No,
it's Rio and Niku, but as one person.
Yes.
Okay.
And apparently he's good at finding stuff, and she was like, hey, can you find the live-action Erased movie? And he goes, do you mean the Netflix series? And she goes, no, apparently there's a live-action Erased movie. And he's like, oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And apparently Weeb Mama and Riku are both super fans of Erased, just like you.
Good.
And
yay.
I just got done telling Weeb Mama that it was awful. And she was like, isn't it supposed to be awful? And I was like, yes, but I didn't know how awful.
Yeah,
so
I think we were expecting, well, I don't know what we were expecting. I was hoping for more like so bad it's good, and this was just kind of like the last 20 minutes were just us repeatedly screaming what at each other.
Why?
Well, even the very paint by numbers live action adaptations, they all generally coast in that like this is awful territory.
Yeah.
But when the credits roll, you kind of just are in that level of acceptance of I don't know what I expected. You don't feel bad about it. You feel like how you would expect to feel after knowingly wanting to waste an hour and a half of your life.
Mm-hmm.
This was a fucking experience.
Yeah. I will say Yeah, let's hold off on that for now, and let's talk about the good stuff first.
Yeah, let's not lead the listeners in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
The series Erased, the anime series, is fucking great.
Yes. So I guess first of all, this is definitely going to be a spoiler cast. So for those of you who have not seen Erased, and plan to or would like to, don't watch this. I think all of us, just to get ahead of it, all of us would probably recommend the anime.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I think I would also recommend the manga. I think it's a really good read. There's a lot of differences, but at least for the first there's four like condensed books that are just like big collections of the manga volumes. The middle two are like almost shot for shot the anime. And they're great. There's differences in the beginning and the end that we'll get into. But it's still a really good read. I cannot recommend either of the live actions.
No.
So yeah, if you're going to experience Erased, I think the best way, in my opinion, to experience it is the anime.
I still want to watch the Netflix series because I hate myself.
And you should.
It can't be worse.
It honestly is not. It's not. It's definitely not worse than the movie.
I can't watch the live action Netflix show. I quit drinking.
Look, that fake beard's gonna get you through it.
Yeah, exactly. Just remember, do it for the beard, Lee.
Do it for Sawada's fake beard.
do it for him. Okay, so I guess quickly we'll go over kind of like the basic plot of the anime. Is that we follow the main character, Satoru Fujinuma, and he is kind of a he's a bit of a down in his luck, kind of non-motivated kind of guy at the beginning. He's trying to become a manga artist and not doing so well. He works at a pizza joint. He's kind of coasting through life a little bit. He's not really, doesn't really feel like he has much purpose. But he has this superpower where he is, and it's not something he controls, but occasionally he will get these like flashes of deja vu that essentially tell him there's danger nearby, look out for something off, and you can prevent it. And
I'd just like to interject that I don't know if it is brought up in the manga, but I'm kind of happy that it's never explained why he has this ability.
Yes.
Same. It is never brought up in the manga.
Yeah, I'm someone who in general is very sick of origin stories.
Yeah.
So many of the the superhero films that come out have to reintroduce you to the humble beginnings. And I'm sorry if I have to watch Uncle Ben die one more fucking time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose it. So yeah, the fact that we don't get any context for his power is very refreshing.
Yeah, I was happy about that.
Yeah, definitely. And so we are introduced to this superpower in a very small way. Essentially, he's going out on a pizza delivery. He gets this flash. He realizes that there is a truck that is out of control that is threatening to hit a child. And he's able to act and save the kid to his own detriment. He gets injured. He ends up in the hospital for a couple of days, with recovering from injuries. And that is a very important thing to note, that when he does these revivals, he ends up kind of sometimes coming out the worse for them. And so as the story progresses, his mom comes back into town and kind of reminds him of, hey, when you were a kid, there were these murders that happened in the town, and we adults kind of all got together and hoped that you all would forget about them. And essentially, I don't want to skip over any details, but I do kind of want to summarize. He has another revival, and the revival ends up being about specifically the serial murderer who has been kidnapping children for all these years. And it's the same guy that was harassing his town as a kid. He gets his mom involved in his revival, and that is what ends up getting her killed. The serial killer, breaks into their house and stabs his mom. And it essentially is made to look like he did it. He finds his mom, panics, and immediately tries to chase down the killer. In his panic, he starts, essentially trying to think like, oh, I need to revive. I need to revive so I can save my mom. And that revival to save his mom, instead of taking him back to before she was murdered, it ends up taking him all the way back to 1988, I think.
Something like that, 1988, 1987.
Yeah, which is when, right before the first child abductions happened. So essentially the series then becomes 29-year-old Satoru being transported into 10-year-old Satoru's body and being forced to solve the murders of these, or solve the disappearances of these children. And where it differs from kind of a typical murder mystery is that his method of solving these crimes, it's not, in the anime, it's not really actually about hunting down the killer so much as it is about saving the victims. And I think that's where the strength of the show lies. If you've watched the anime, then you already know who the killer is, and very likely you already know who the killer is by episode 2.
Yeah, I think Lee and I were like the second the killer showed up.
The second, so I ended up making a guess about who it was the first time we saw the opening credits, because the killer is their teacher, Yashero Gaku, and he is the only prominent adult featured in the opening credits that's not in one of the kind of like film cuts. So then in the second episode, in that same episode, when he's introduced, Lee actually made a joke that was just like, so how long have you been evil?
Yeah, it's one of those situations if you can just tell either by certain lighting choices, certain costume giveaways. There's usually a couple things that you can pick up on that just are red flags for making someone suspicious. And one look at this motherfucker was just, oh, well, I mean, open and shut case. It's the teacher.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And part of my frustration is that as the series progressed, it became more and more ham-fisted. They kept shoving such obvious evidence right in your face that once we got to about like episode 7 or 8, I thought maybe this is just a really good job of misdirection. Because now it's so obvious it's him, it can't be.
Yeah. This
is the swerve, and now they're going to show us who it really is. And nope, fuck you, it's the teacher. And oh goodness, yeah, I'll complain more about that when we start dissecting the different endings. But
yes,
part of the joy of watching a series that revolves around investigation or detective work, anything about solving a murder or Sherlock Holmes sort of stuff, is taking the viewer on the journey of being a detective themselves, showing the person watching the show just enough evidence that they can start to form their own ideas and form their own theories and feel accomplished if they're correct.
Yes.
And when this is done properly, if you're able to pin down the killer in the first, like, let's say it's an average run length, like 2-hour film. If you figure out who the killer is in the first 30 minutes and it's a competent script, when the reveal happens, you're going to feel thrilled. You're going to feel like, wow, I was on top of that one.
Yes.
Instead, with this one, I figured out it was the teacher, and I just went, oh boy. The rest of this series better like have some substance, because now the whole mystery is removed from it. And every time I see this character, it's not going to be with that hope of, oh, I hope they're a good guy. It's going to be, oh, here he comes with his cloak and his scythe.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where Lee and I diverge a little bit, although I think you would agree with me that sorry, I lost the exact wording of what you said, but the rest of the show has enough to prop up the fact that the mystery is not a mystery.
Oh, well, yes, the rest of the series had more than enough substance to keep it going, but it's a concern. It's a concern when you discover the killer so soon. That
for sure.
You really just gotta hope, like, oh fuck, like, can this show carry itself without the mystery when it's in itself a mystery?
Yes, and I would argue that Erased does carry itself without the mystery.
I was very happy to find that.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to say too, because I'm kind of with Kat on this one, where it's like at first it was like, oh yeah, you know, he's probably the killer for sure, but like especially as even by episode 3, I stopped necessarily caring, because I felt like the show was less about the mystery of who the killer is and more of like character growth of Satoru and his relationship with his friends and Kaio and everything like that. And for me, that the identity of the killer seemed trivial compared to all of that for me.
To bring back a favorite of this group, that is actually one of the reasons I did think to recommend Erased to you guys was because in some ways it's very similar to Twin Peaks in that regard. I feel like, you know, the mystery around the killer is very important and central to Twin Peaks, but it's definitely not the only thing that's happening. And also, as we've discussed in our previous podcast, Lynch does an amazing job about making it more about Laura than her killer.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things I really appreciate about Erased, is that it's not about Yashero. It's about Kaio and Hiromi and Satoru's efforts to keep them safe by the power of friendship, essentially, which is a very cheesy thing to say, but that's essentially what he does do. He has this superpower of revival, but his actual power as a character is that he's able to kind of like sacrifice bits of himself to save his friends, to save people he cares about. And that actually ties into then talking a little bit about sort of what happens to him once we actually get the reveal of who the killer is in the anime. What happens to Satoru is that he the killer essentially like catches him and kind of realizes like, you're on to me, I'm gonna deal with you, but like I'm gonna deal with you and then peace out, right? And so he ends up sending him into an icy river in a car, and because of that, Satoru is in a coma for 15 years. So a little bit of really great foreshadowing in that it basically essentially mirrors the, you know, he revived, you know, a couple minutes to save a kid from a truck in the beginning of the show and lost 2 days of his life. He revived 15 years ago to save Kaio, Hiromi, Aya, his mom, Yuki, like save all of those people from this killer, and he lost 15 years of his life. And it was a sacrifice he was like more than willing to make. And yeah, it's just I think it's just a really good character piece for, yeah, like James was saying, for somebody going from kind of an unmotivated, not really willing to look into himself to kind of like finding his true strength through this like adversity. And the adversity, you know, coming in the form of an actual antagonist is sort of ancillary to the point. Like, I personally really like the way they present Yashero in the anime, just because I am a big fan of like scenery chewing villains. And I also think that like, because the focus is not on the mystery, it actually adds a little bit to me, because it kind of becomes this cat and mouse element that like, you know, you know, you're sitting there waiting for, and you're sitting there waiting for his moment to snap and like fully take off his mask, right? But it's always there, like under the surface, and like we can tell as readers, as you know, as viewers, but you know, it's still hidden from the characters, and I think that can work, right? Like,
what I would be curious about is what if the decision was made to reveal the identity of the killer to the viewer, but not to the characters in the first couple episodes.
That would I know that has been done in previous, or I mean, well, Twin Peaks did it too, right? Where they revealed that it was Lee. If we're gonna spoil, I'm always hesitant to spoil Twin Peaks, even though I'm like sitting here talking about a show that's like way newer than Twin Peaks from 2016, but I'm sitting here like, oh, Twin Peaks from 30 years ago. Like, gotta protect the identity of Leland.
Yeah.
But we get like 2 or 3 episodes, right, where it's revealed that Leland is Bob, and
they still take a season and a half to get there. I'm saying, if you're using the Twin Peaks example, what if they uncovered that it was Leland in the first 3 or 4 episodes of season 1?
Yes. So I'm using Twin Peaks because I actually can't think of a show or a movie that has done that. I know they exist, and I know I have enjoyed them before.
Yeah,
I guess maybe Clove Hitch.
Well, Clove Hitch Killer, like we don't have confirmation until like an hour and a half into the movie. It seems very much like we know who the killer is. But there still is this air of doubt.
Okay.
There's definitely examples, but it's like the Hitchcock thing that I was mentioning to you, where it's like 2 people are at a table, we pan under the table, we see there's a bomb under the table, we pan back up, and the scene continues. Neither character knows that the bomb is there, but the audience knows, and the tension comes from, when is this bomb going to explode?
Exactly.
Yes. Or when will the characters discover what's about to happen to them?
Yeah.
Yes. Very, very true.
I'm mostly just posing the idea of what if the veil of uncertainty for the viewers was just intentionally ripped away early. Like,
and
when they focus on the empty desk, and they start to point out that that Kaio frequently doesn't show up on Monday mornings and things like that. Like, what if they just gave it to us and just had like a quick, 10-second, shot of the teacher watching her desk and him getting frustrated and an inner monologue going, damn, today could have been the day that I took her, or something like that. Just fucking tell us. And then there's that horrible tension of like, every time Satoru's going to him for help, you're like, no, don't go to him. That's not the guy that you... And then when he starts to fall for it, you just start to get that hopeless feeling of, oh God, he's falling right into it.
Which I think is part of the rewatch. It's part of the rewatchability for me.
Oh, okay.
Is that kind of like, I know he's the killer. That veil has been ripped away from me, but because this show does not hinge on that reveal, I feel like it then adds to, me rewatching it. I've seen the anime, full disclosure, probably 7 times.
Wow.
Since I was introduced to it.
Impressive.
And I genuinely, whereas I guess a good recent example would be Knives Out. I really enjoyed Knives Out as a movie.
Still haven't seen it.
Okay. Then I won't spoil it. But
it's something I'm not going to go out of my way to watch. So
sure.
You can go for it.
I also have not seen it, so
I can talk about it without spoiling it. I will just say that I have had no desire to rewatch Knives Out. And it's in a similar vein. It's a more character-driven murder mystery, but there is still a mystery to it. But I think the reveal of who done it, which is also kind of obvious, I think, in a similar way that Erased's killer is obvious. But there's something missing. There's an ingredient missing, which is, I think, part that the supporting cast is not very strong for Knives Out. I think I'm sure you guys have heard that criticism before. Like, most of the non-suspect characters are not fleshed out, whereas Erased obviously has a very, very strong supporting cast, and in fact, that's kind of the heart of the whole show. And then also that the villain, the eventual killer, is presented in such a way that they are suspicious but not overly suspicious. So it is still leaning into the murder mystery aspect. Whereas I think that Erased, having the teacher be overly suspicious, but only in as he's presented to the audience, I think actually adds to my experience as a viewer already knowing. I can totally see, though, somebody watching for the first time and immediately figuring out who the killer is being disappointed, for sure. But that was just not my experience. I just found it enjoyable because it wasn't so my question, my like the driving narrative question for me was not, are we going to catch this killer? It's, are we going to save Kaio? Yeah. It was like the killer was more of this inevitable force rather than, a dude who needed to be caught.
At least for me, it could have maybe been interesting if the story was more explicit about who the killer was up front, as opposed to just being on the nose but not telling us until episode 10 or whatever. In hindsight, thinking about it more and more, I'm kind of glad it didn't, because I think even though the like, at least for me, the identity of the killer isn't as important as the character development of Satoru and Kaio and all their friends and whatnot. I think if we knew that Yashero, like me as a first-time viewer, I think if the show was explicit that and told me flat out that Yashero was the killer in like episode 2, it would have taken away from some of the wholesome slice of life shit. Because there was a lot of there was a lot of stuff where it's like, yeah, the killer is in the background. We know that this is about a serial killer. We know that characters are going to die. But at least for me, like one of the strengths of this show was just how strong the character development was and how wholesome and it was, like just
and
his budding friendship with Kaio and him becoming a better friend to Kenya and Hiromi and whatnot, and all those little things. That's kind of what kept me going and kept me invested, and I'd just be frustrated at the end of each episode because I'm like, no, keep going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing we should mention. The pacing for the anime is brilliant. It just, even though it is mostly this kind of like slice of life type, like there's not a lot of action, like Attack on Titan, I think, has a similar kind of like pacing structure where it really kind of like ramps up to the end and then kind of leaves you on a bit of a cliffhanger wanting more. But this does it without having, explosive set pieces and really epic fights and stuff like that. It does it with this very intimate story of just like characters being and growing, and it's amazing.
Well, it's a big statement to the story structure and how they were able to visualize certain emotions. When you point out that, and we all agree, when the best portion of the entire story is an image of a cup of noodles and a piece of bread. It really commends the level of storytelling that's on display.
So
if you want to give the context to that.
To contextualize that, in his second revival attempt to save Kaio, there is a moment where they kidnap her to save her from the actual kidnapper. They figure out that the place they've been keeping her is not safe, and so they end up taking her back to Satoru's house, where his mom like takes care of her and actually treats her like a mom. She's been being abused by her own mother, and that's why she's eventually a target for the serial kidnapper. And we've seen a lot of her mom's abuse in the show. We've seen her bruises, we've seen her getting hit, and all that kind of stuff. But there's a moment where they wake up after Kaiu's first night at their house, and mom has made just like this gourmet full spread breakfast, and it's set out at the table and it looks beautiful. And Kaio looks at it, and we see a flash of what she sees. And she's looking at this breakfast, and she's thinking back, and she sees a cup of noodles on her, at her home, then just a piece of bread, and then just money. And she just, in this scene, it cuts back to her, and she breaks down in tears. And it's one of 2 scenes in the show that always gets me because it's such beautiful storytelling and just so you just feel that emotion in just a series of images.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. And yeah, we like I actually was debating when we were watching it saying something of like this is about to be one of my favorite moments in the show, and I held off because I was like I don't want to like give them any expectations, and both of you independently were just like holy shit. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm just like yes, I'm glad I recommended this. Yeah. I picked the right people to watch with. Yeah, because I know you guys
needed more wolves though.
You appreciate sorry, what?
Needed more wolves though.
It did need more wolves, you're right. But you guys appreciate visual storytelling. You appreciate that kind of setup. And,
we may be goons, but we like subtlety.
Yeah. Exactly. I may be a big hack fraud piece of shit Dumbo goon, but god damn it, I prefer visual storytelling to fucking exposition.
Yes.
I don't like if that scene was Kaio looking at the breakfast and then she starts crying and then goes, "No, you don't understand. I haven't had like a home cooked breakfast in like years." I just wouldn't care because it's exposition.
A 60-second flashback to her mother like making her eat cigarette butts.
Yeah.
God.
It's good for you. Here's some Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yeah, and that's the thing is this show, you know, like even though we talk about how Yashero is not presented in a subtle manner whatsoever, mostly this show does subtlety very, very well, including the foreshadowing in the opening credits.
Yeah, that was something that I was very pleased with, especially because I think shortly before Erased, as we were watching it, you know, I was talking to Kat and mentioning how one of the things that I really love about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is that the OPs for each season, each arc, foreshadow events to come. In some instances, pretty fucking brazenly. Like if you know what you're looking for, you flat out get the entirety of the story. But it doesn't do it in such like an overt way. You do have to like intentionally look for it, or like they'll fuck with the OP and whatnot, like do little touches to like fuck with it when certain plot points have happened. And I was telling Kat that, and Kat was like, "Oh, well, maybe you should start paying attention to the OP in Erased." And yeah, Erased was basically doing the same shit. And I was like, "Hey, I'm glad." Like I know the JoJo anime came out beforehand, so maybe the Erased anime took influence from that, but like
probably.
But
actually,
I don't care because it's such
story, though. It's
so well. I love it when shit does that.
Yeah, actually, funny story. Apparently, the author, I don't know if I'm gonna pronounce his name correctly. Kei Sanbe.
Yeah.
Apparently, he actually.
Kei Sanbe.
Yeah. Apparently, he did work on JoJo, the manga.
Oh.
Yeah. So very
coming together.
Very much they could have there could have been some influence there.
Oh my god, yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Sanbei came across a job listing in Weekly Shonen Jump from Hirohiko Araki requesting for new assistants. While not particularly a fan of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series, its variety of backgrounds and foreign settings enticed him to submit an application. After applying twice, Sanbei was accepted into Araki's team. Around the time of Battle Tendencies serialization, and was eventually promoted to chief assistant. He would go on to work for Araki for a total of 8 years before leaving halfway through Vento Reo, aka Golden Wind, to pursue his own career as a manga artist.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, there's your crossover.
Well, yeah. Now, I guess this is 100% setting in stone, as if it wasn't already 100 set in stone. That I'm fucking showing you JoJo, Cat.
Yes, 100%. I'm on board. My hesitancy with getting into JoJo is I know how long it is,
Don't
much.
Forget about that for the time being. Just know that Satoru is now JoJo.
Excellent.
Yashero!
Revival is just a stand power, right?
Yeah. Revival is a stand power, and serial killing is the work of an enemy stand.
Oh.
You know that. Yeah. There we go. Yashiro's stand power is seeing the spider thread.
Yeah.
Wow. There we go. Oh my god.
Big brain James. I saw that I cracked the case.
To go back to the breakfast scene, as a segue to that, there's one other moment that always gets me in the show, and actually this might be a really good segue to start talking about some of the differences between the anime and the manga, and the live action shows. Is the so after Satoru wakes up from his coma, he doesn't have any memory of what happened. He's lost 15 years, and the anime portrays this beautifully in that his internal monologue is now voiced by his child self. Which
not to interrupt, Kat, but why don't you let the viewers know what coma you're talking about?
Right. So I think I mentioned earlier that when Yashero finally does catch on to Satoru's kind of meddling in his affairs, he takes him out in a car and shoves the car into an icy lake. And Satoru does not die from this, but instead is stuck in a coma for 15 years. And when he wakes up, his mom has been taking care of him all these 15 years, but he has no memory of what happened. So he doesn't remember what Yashero did, and yeah, he doesn't remember anything. His friends, specifically the friends he's made from attempting to save all these people through revival, are still with him, are still trying to help him. Kenya and Hiromi are now like grown up, and they're the first to come visit him. And his mom specifically says, like, don't tell him shit. Like, don't tell him anything. We don't want to like overload him right now. He's just woken up. Like, let's just like chill,
Don't tell him about 9/11.
Don't tell him about exactly. Don't tell him about all the stuff he's
God damn it!
We said we wouldn't. I don't know if you want to give additional context.
No!
Nope.
Okay. All right, cool. It's like a Red Letter Media reference. Don't worry, guys. But so Satoru is then, he's still in physical therapy because he's still trying to get back, his mom has been kind of like exercising his muscles by just like, giving him like workouts while he slept and stuff like that. But he has still been bedridden for 15 years, so he can't really walk quite well and stuff like that. And as he's in physical therapy, a woman comes to visit him, a woman with a baby, and he immediately recognized her as grown-up Kayo. And it turns out that her baby is Hiromi's, so she and Hiromi got married. And in the anime, Satoru, the baby starts crying, and I think reaches his hand out, and Satoru ends up touching his hand, and we don't know it immediately, but there is a cute little detail that I don't know if you guys picked up on, but his inner monologue stops after he touches the baby's hand.
Okay, yeah.
We don't hear his inner monologue again until it's revealed that he got all his memories back. Because essentially his inner monologue at that moment switches back to his adult self because everything reconnects for him. Right. But yeah, it's eventually revealed that touching the baby's hand, who is a child who would never have existed, considering that in the original timeline, both of his parents were horribly murdered as children. It's just like, it's one of the most like beautiful, bittersweet moments for me of the series. In that, like, it's kind of like all of what Satoru went through, all of the sacrifice he made is worth it. And he, the kind of connection to this person who exists because of Satoru's like kindness. It was beautiful to me.
Yeah, no, it's very beautiful.
But that is not how it happens in the manga. So if you guys want, I can start talking about some of the differences.
I can't wait to hear some of these.
Before you do, I just want to add one more thing about the anime, and I think we can all agree on this, that Satoru's mom, Sachiko, is the best character, and she's a witch.
Oh my god, she's so good.
She is the best.
Yeah. the anime interpretation of her is easily my favorite.
Yeah,
by far.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
By a long shot.
Yes, 100%. In the manga, she's a little she's pretty similar, but they make her a little bit harsher, like not in a fun way, kind of like where she's very spicy in the anime. She's a very like tomboyish smoker. Like she looks super young. She knows she looks super young. She's just like,
if you bring me a beer, I'll let you have one.
Exactly. She's the cool mom. And she kind of like knows everything. She's very perceptive and to the point where the main character often like thinks to himself that, oh my god, she's a witch, like she read my mind kind of thing. Yokai. Okay, so to start, because I talked about the baby scene, in the manga, instead of like the Kaio and her baby do show up, but it's still while Satoru does not have his memories at all. In the manga, the coma recovery is a lot longer than it's presented in the show, and it's also largely more self-motivated. So I think possibly some of the criticism of the ending that I've heard, where it's a little rushed because the books tend to be a little longer about how it ends, might come partially from this. So in the manga, Satoru starts getting his memory back during the scene where the paparazzi are taking pictures of him with the I think her name is
with the leukemia patient.
With the leukemia patient, yes. She has a much bigger role to play in the manga as well.
Kumi,
thank you.
Kumi, yes, thank you.
So in the anime, it is adult or more adult. It is Yashero who interrupts the paparazzi and kind of like saves Satoru from embarrassment. In the manga, it is Airi who kind of shows up out of nowhere and decks a reporter. And it doesn't fully give his memories back, but it triggers him to kind of like remember the alternate timeline of like, I know this girl. Also in the manga, he tries to get up out of his wheelchair, like when he sees her, and collapses and falls back into a coma for another 2 years.
Yeah, another coma.
Yeah, it was like, what? So he partially recovers his memories there, and then when he wakes up from his second coma,
oh my god,
he starts basically like attempting to find her again, to try to make the connections again and reforge his memories. So that's part and ties into Airi has a much larger role in the manga. There are a lot of scenes with her that are either cut entirely, or her part is cut out of them or cut down in them. So for instance, which you guys saw in the live action movie we just watched, in the manga, first scene with...
Don't bring that cursed thing into my life.
Don't bring that shit up right now. In the first scene of Revival with his mom, where they stop the attempted kidnapping, Airi shows up in the middle of that scene and like comically pratfalls in front of them, and that's like part of the revival. And it's kind of like, wait, what? Why is what's happening here? I personally think it works much better in the anime without her, where she kind of like they run into her at the end, but like in the actual scene itself, it's just him and the mom, so we can kind of like focus on what the mom sees, what like what she is thinking about what her son is seeing, and it kind of focuses up more. It presents a tighter narrative, I think. The other thing about the manga that mercifully every adaptation has cut out is that Airi frequently refers to herself in the third person.
Yeah, you can ditch all that shit. I get that there's a lot of anime and manga that like to attribute like a certain verbal tick to characters whether it's using the third person or one I actually do kind of find endearing. Reno from Final Fantasy VII constantly saying "yo" in all of his sentences.
Oh,
like,
well,
okay,
yeah.
I like the little verbal text, but having your character refer to themselves in the third person, especially as a way of finding out what their name is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which
holy shit.
Yeah, it was very clumsy in the because up until that, so in the manga there's a scene early on where him and he experiences another revival with Irie, and essentially they have to go save a group of kids from an abandoned building. They're like falling down an open elevator shaft. It's very weird and kind of goofy.
Okay.
But after that happens, because Irie's the one who like dives into the elevator shaft to like save them. After that happens, she's very shook up, and she just starts talking about like, oh, Irie's hands are shaking now, and he literally is like, oh, I guess that's her first name, and I was like, that is the clumsiest way to introduce.
Yeah, I mean, like,
awful.
It can work, like somebody referring to their name. Like a good example that I thought of is fucking Dio Brando in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but he's this shitheel fucking bravado villain. Of course, he might occasionally refer to himself as Dio. Like, he'll be like, I, Dio, sort of thing. Whereas a cutesy Japanese high school pizza delivery girl, it just seems, kawaii.
Yes.
And I kind of hate that shit.
Or when the great one, The Rock, speaks to you in the third person, jabroni.
Yeah. That it's usually like a sign of like egotistical shit, as opposed to... Oh, it's a cute little tick.
I think I think one of you guys mentioned this while we were watching the movie about wanting a scene with just Yashero and Satoru in the car together.
We were talking about how if we were adapting,
right, that you would make it so. They have to, it would just condense. Okay.
It would basically after the Kaio scene.
Straight from the Child Protective Services dealing with the abusive mother, straight to the reveal of the killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. Okay, so this is slightly different, but I guess still a good segue. In the manga, there are actually 2 scenes in the car before, in Yashiro's car, before his attempted murder of Satoru. One is with the mom and one is without. The first one is without the mom. Essentially there's like a moment where like it was very weird. It was like Yashiro forgot to hand something out in class and was like, I have to go to everyone's house, and like, Satoru, come with me. I don't know. And that was when they talk about oh my gosh. I want to say that's when they talk about trying to like meet somebody that you don't know already. That's when he's like trying to figure out how to get to Aya to protect her. And then later on they have another scene in the car with the mom, and they talk about like the second half of that, which was about like filling the void, I think, something like that. It's either that or in reverse. And then like, and so the first scene actually is when they reveal the candy in the drawer. And then the second scene has the same the same thing happens. He gives him more candy, and then mom wakes up and is like, she doesn't say, "Can I bum one off you?" which was one of my favorite lines in the anime. But she does definitely say like, "Give me one of those."
Nice.
But yeah, so I think the anime wisely chose to cut those two together. Yeah. Because it fits a little better. But I think the manga was definitely trying to start building him up a little bit as a potential suspect in the minds of the readers.
Okay.
So I have 2 other big differences between the anime and the manga. The first is that, and this is true of I guess I should start with the Netflix adaptation is slightly more true to the manga than the anime. It follows the ending, which is the second point I'm going to get into, and it also employs this change, which is that Caillou returns to school a short while after she's been rescued from her mom. So essentially in the anime, they make a big deal out of saying that like, hey, once we actually get this ball rolling and get child services involved and get her away from her mom, she's not going to be here anymore. She's not going to be able to be your friend anymore. And that is part of the sacrifice that Satoru willingly takes on, is that he will essentially, lose this friend he's just made in an effort to save her. And in my opinion, the manga's choice of bringing her back anyway, as like she's commuting to school from her grandma's house, just really undercuts that point.
Same. I would agree with that.
I like very much the anime cut that out entirely and made it much more, because I feel like the anime's big theme is like sacrifice for for love, not in the romantic sense, but in the familial or platonic sense, the platonic sense of love.
Satoru's entire arc and the root of his revival ability is about sacrifice. He's a guardian angel for other people's at the cost of his own mental, emotional, and physical well-being.
Yes,
so
exactly.
When some of his revivals will hospitalize him, some will still take their toll in an emotional sense, and having to let go of, at that point, your best friend is that sort of cost. That's the exchange that revival is taking.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
So then to have her just come back, it's just like, yo, really?
Yeah.
You got one for free.
and it also makes it like, okay, well, now she's not safe from the killer, right? Like, he could still decide to take her. It creates more holes too.
Yeah.
Even outside of the just thematically falling flat. But now we come to probably one of my biggest points of contention with, I believe, the Erased fan base, probably. Because I heard from James sent me a link to a video essay on it, and I've heard from other people that they prefer the ending in the manga to the ending in the anime. Specifically in regards to how they wrap up the what happens to Yashero, basically. So in the manga, once the killer is revealed, Yashero gets a very extensive backstory. And I will very briefly detail it for you guys, because it's also not really touched on in the other live-action movie. But it is touched on in the live-action Netflix series. Basically, Yashero grew up fairly wealthy, and he had an older brother who was very violent, and his parents doted more on Yashero, and so the brother would beat him up a lot. Eventually, the brother went from doing that to molesting young girls, and essentially started to employ Yashero to lure them to him and then like provide aftercare, which is exactly how it's worded in the manga, and I'm just like, oh, like, no, gross. At one point, or some months after they've started this little symbiotic relationship they have, the brother kills one of the girls because he thinks he's about to get caught. Yashero helps him cover it up, and then Yashero decides, like, oh, I know what I'm supposed to do here, and essentially sets it up so he kills his own brother and makes it look like a suicide. After essentially pinning the girl's murder on him, like, being like, oh yes, he definitely killed her, kind of thing, even though truthfully he did kill her. So yeah, that's his big thing. And then he continues to lure little girls and just kill them, right? It's not really explained why he kills them, but it's just like that's essentially what he's just decided he really likes to do. He talks in the car at one point about having a bad experience in romance, and therefore that's why he's not married yet. And the manga gets more into that. He had a fiance who was a psychologist. She was a child psychologist specifically, and he was super interested in like figuring out child psychology because that would help him lure more victims. But she was also very smart, and she ended up kind of getting suspicious of him, and so he murdered her. Also, instead of once Satoru catches him, instead of like stopping killing altogether, he just stops killing kids. He keeps killing adults. Like there's this whole, like Kenya explains it later. There was a whole thing where like he actually was the one who killed his because he at the end of the show he gets married so that he can become a congressman or like a politician, and like take over his father-in-law's business. He kills his father-in-law in the manga, and like he just keeps killing adults. Just can't stop. Yeah, it's very weird and elaborate and kind of, again, unnecessary. I feel like it's a lot of unnecessary stuff where I think we get the point across very well in the anime, where he's, he doesn't need to. We don't really need to know the why more so than what we get in the anime.
Yeah.
So then the ending. Yashero is.
I'm excited for this. I want to hear this shit.
Yeah. In fairness, now that we've seen a true travesty of an erased ending, this will not seem as bad. And I will kind of explain my thoughts on it a little bit at the end of this, but yeah. So the ending, it is more of an elaborate cat and mouse game. So essentially, Satoru gets his memory back once he manages to like figure out Irie and figure out all of that. He talks to Kenya and he's like, "Hey, it was our teacher. Let's get him." Yashero is now goes by Nishizuma, I think.
Yeah, Nishizuma.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, and he's a congressman, and he's also very involved in the hospital that Satoru has been staying at. So, basically, he arranges this trip to a park, like a nature preserve park with like a bunch of like obstacle courses and hiking and like cute things. It's supposed to be like a hospital outing for like the outpatients, right? So it's been 2 years. Kumi is now in recovery from her cancer treatment, and so it's going to be like her first trip. And essentially, they decide to like both Yashero and Satoru intend to sort of use Kumi as bait for the other one. Both parties set up a bunch of different traps to try to outdo one another. Yashero sets up a bunch of like fake supply kits. So like in the past he had a supply kit of like kidnap materials that he had in the bus. That was why they decided that in the bus that they were keeping Kaio in originally. That was why they decided it was unsafe. So he essentially sets up kits that look just like that in hopes of like outing Satoru basically. And essentially, Yashero's plan is to kill Kumi and pin it on Satoru. And then Satoru's plan is to try to catch Yashero in the act and get him, basically. The final confrontation, though, essentially, Kumi ends up, like, getting out of, like, they've been watching her, but she disappears, and they're like, oh no. They figure out that she's in a boat that's sinking on the lake. But Satoru ends up being a step ahead of Yashero, and the final confrontation with them ends up on a bridge that Yashero has doused in gasoline, as the the fireworks are about to happen. So they have a big serial killer versus detective style confrontation where they talk about all of the things that happened, and Yashero's like, I'm not, I was planning to kill Kumi, but really it was to get to you. The whole point of this is I want to kill you by my own hands and also die. Like, that's going to be the end of my story, because I don't believe in the criminal justice system. All I'm doing is trying to fill the void in my life, which is just what everyone else is doing. I'm just doing it the way that works for me, and everybody else thinks that's evil. Am I evil? And it's that kind of conversation. So the bridge is rigged to explode with both of them on it. He sets the gasoline on fire. They both end up just plunging into the lake and surviving. Yashero is arrested. And he essentially just as we discovered, there is a statute of limitations in Japan, even for murders. or attempted murder. I think it's like
Yes.
15 years. I think that was like recently overturned or something, but there's still like a grandfather system of like if it's older than the law was implemented, then it still doesn't count. But he confessed to all of it, so he ends up getting I believe he ends up getting the death penalty or life in prison. The manga and the live action flip them. So like one of them he gets life in prison, one of them he gets the death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
And so my issue with this ending, and it is the bulk of the final book. The bulk of the final book of Erased is this setup and final confrontation. And I think ultimately it misses the point of the story. I think the manga is much better about hiding who the killer is, but you do still have the scene of he's got a bunch of candy in his glove compartment. Mm-hmm. You know, it's still very, oh yeah, it's him, and nobody's really suspicious of him, so it's definitely him. To give context, I saw the live action Netflix show before I read the manga. And I will say that the manga is better than the live action show for sure. But I saw the live action show and I was like, I don't like this ending at all. And the manga, like, it's better. But I will say that this ending in particular really reminded me of the original ending, or the original screenplay for the movie Seven. I don't know if either of you have read it before.
Nope. I've only seen the film Seven.
Okay. So then you guys both know that, like, the ending for Seven is iconic.
Yeah.
Right?
I adore it.
Yes, it's amazing. That is not the ending in the original screenplay. The original screenplay, a lot of the scenes are the same. There's a little bit more, like, into the research of the sort of, like, church influences and, like, you know, the very old kind of like paintings and stuff like that.
Sure.
And the final scene, like the climax of the original screenplay is a serial killer v detective confrontation in a church. And it's fine. It's, you know, it works, but it's very basic. And that's kind of how I feel about this ending for Erased. I feel like it's basic. I feel like this is the standard way to end a serial killer movie. Am I saying that the ending the anime provides for Yashero is akin to the ending to Seven? Not at all.
No.
I think that James and Lee both, I think you guys both, when you saw it, kind of said that the ending, especially in the Yashero Satoru confrontation, was not your favorite part, was a weak element to the ending.
Yeah, I was on board with, I don't know, 90 to 95% of it until Satoru's plan was,
yes,
I'm going to roll my wheelchair off the roof because somehow this gate conveniently blew open.
Yeah.
And my friends have a crash mat down there. And the entire plot hinges on Yashero, one, not looking down and seeing the crash mat. And two, actually catching the wheelchair. So, no, I guess one, catching the wheelchair. Two, not looking down. And then three, actually letting go of the wheelchair instead of trying to pull Satoru back up.
Yes.
I think they could have done, I don't know what they could have done, but they could have done something that wasn't as ridiculous, I would say.
Yes.
And this is coming from somebody who sat through 12 episodes of a show where somebody's able to travel back in time.
Yes.
I bought that, but the entire shit of him throwing himself off the roof, that couple minutes kind of soured the ending a little bit for me.
Yes. And I would definitely agree with you on that. I think for me the strength of that ending is not in the resolution of it, but in the sort of like reveal of what it means to Yashero, because
it's not stupid like the movie.
It's not, yeah. So
we'll get there.
It's not it doesn't feel generic. It doesn't feel like a generic, oh, they're gonna fight each other on you know, they're gonna fight each other here. They're gonna, you know, have a standoff of you know, opposing moralities, and you know, like it just, and you know, I say this as somebody who is a big fan of you know, most of the Hannibal movies and TV shows, where that stuff does happen a lot, right? But I feel like that's more of a staple, like a genre staple, where it's like that is expected to happen. Your show is about Hannibal. It's, you know, you're gonna have him up against detectives. But yeah, I felt like it was weaker here because Yashero was not he's not Hannibal.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
And additionally, I think that the strength of the ending for the anime kind of lies in the fact that unlike the manga, where he continues killing but just not killing children, Yashiro in the anime doesn't kill anyone after Satoru goes in the river.
Right.
And part of
He's
that is
content
because,
with it.
well, he's like waiting for it almost, or like he needs to know what's, because this is also not this does not happen in the manga. This does not happen and this does not happen in any of the live action shows. But in the anime, before Satoru goes underwater, he screams out, "Yashiro, I know your future." And because of that, like, Yashiro has become obsessed with that, and he's become obsessed with Satoru, and essentially waiting for Satoru to wake up. And kind of like that confrontation on the roof is more him realizing that, like, Satoru is actually the only one who knows what he truly is. That Satoru's efforts blocked him from, you know, essentially fulfilling his dreams of being a, you know, like a notorious serial killer who's killed hundreds of people. But he doesn't because of Satoru. So there's like this like alternate him that is still him, but only Satoru knows that person.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of like thematic connection there just felt so much more interesting and enjoyable to me, to have that, like, that real twist of the knife at him at the end, where, like, not only did I stop you from killing my friends, but I stopped you from being you. Like, mm-hmm. I erased you. Right? Yeah. Like, I'm like, that fucking works.
Yeah.
The other things I will say about the live action Netflix show is that I found Airi, Akemi, who's Kayu's mom, and Yuki to be really well cast. I think everyone else in the cast was serviceable, but Satoru had issues. He was not very charismatic.
Well, based on the 2 screenshots that I've seen, I'm okay with the fake beards.
Yeah. there was also a surprising amount of terrible fake beards in the live action episode.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We must be looking at different beards. Those are perfection.
Yeah. It was when I saw those for the first time, I was just like, why? Like, I kind of
wish Kaio had a fake beard.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's missing.
As a child.
Yeah, as a child.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then she grows up and it's like a full beard, and you're like, oh, Kaio.
or no. Kaio has the baby, and the baby has a fake beard.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Yeah, I think they were probably, so. As cheesy as it is, I think it might have made sense for Yashiro, because he's supposed to be like in disguise. So it's like, okay, he's wearing a fake beard as part of his disguise. Sawata's fake beard is just, it's a choice.
It's fucking gorgeous.
It's a stylistic choice. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So do we want to start hating now? Or...
Oh boy.
Yeah, please. Let's get to that.
We should.
So the night after we watched the anime,
fuck,
I was casually reading the Erased wiki because I was toying with the idea of watching, because we watched this last week, the anime. We binged all 12 episodes. And I was casually toying with the idea of being a good boy and watching the Netflix series so I could have a little more to talk about, because I haven't read the manga and I'm a lazy shit. And I've never watched the Netflix series. So at least I'd kind of have a vague understanding of, maybe how the manga was. And through this, I discovered that there was a live-action erased movie. And I tell Kat this, and Kat is like, what? And everybody who I've told this to has been like, what? Because I think in that video essay that I mentioned to you, or I shot you, Kat, they also briefly mentioned Mother's Basement. He also briefly mentioned
which
and a movie.
To clarify, I've only watched like the first 5 minutes of, because I didn't want
I
didn't want to have his opinion color mine, or have a lot of this podcast be me responding to his criticism. I saw the first 5 minutes where he said that he didn't like the ending of the anime, and I was like, I disagree, and I didn't want to go further than that because I didn't want to get into like the details of why I disagree in specific relation to his criticism.
Yeah, that's fine.
I got my own reasons.
I watched it mostly as sort of a catch up to kind of hear what the manga was like or whatever. But I was like, okay, so there's this movie, and apparently nobody likes it, especially because it has a different ending from both the manga and the anime. And I tell this to Kat, and we toy with the idea of watching it before the podcast at some point during the week. Maybe we'll watch it. Let's do a watch party. In fact, let's do a watch party of this movie right before the podcast. That's a great fucking idea. And then it became this entire ordeal of trying to find the movie, because it's not streaming fucking anywhere. And the only way I can see to like check out the movie is to buy a Chinese import Blu-ray off of Amazon that has English subtitles. But even then, it doesn't have Prime shipping, so who knows if it would have arrived before the podcast day. And I don't have a Blu-ray player or a disc drive on my computer, so I would have to send it to order it to Kat, and maybe she could like rip it or whatever. But instead, Weeb Mama and Riku pulled through and managed to find us a copy.
Boy, did they!
And
we had to download separate
additional subtitles because the subtitles of this the file that we have were in Russian, which
y'all gotta really understand the level of jank that we're working with here.
Yeah, and also our level of commitment to this podcast.
Yes,
we did all this for you.
We love you.
We're willing to literally sacrifice 2 hours of our time for you.
So, the first hour and 40 minutes is a really rushed adaptation of most of Erased. And I would say that the movie fails as an adaptation because, while we were able to kind of understand what the fuck was going on, because we had just seen the anime a week prior, so much shit just seemed to pop up out of fucking nowhere. Like, shit was just so goddamn rushed. The one thing I can say is the kid actors were great.
Yeah.
And the guy who was playing Satoru, I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce his name, Tatsuya Fujiwara, who I recognized as the lead actor from Battle Royale, was really great. And also, while looking at Wikipedia, Kat, and I've been sitting on this now for like the last 40 minutes, just for this moment, he was also Light Yagami in the live-action Japanese Death Note movies.
Really?
Yes.
What a connection.
What a connection.
While we were watching this movie, we did start talking about the Death Note adaptations as well, because those are notoriously bad live action adaptations, which we do have some good things to say about, but like not a lot.
Yeah. So the first hour and 40 minutes of this is a very, very rushed adaptation that's not very good. Some good performances. People are trying, and there's some good.
There's effort.
There's some effort, and you can tell at least for the first hour and 40 minutes, the filmmakers aren't strictly making a cash grab. Like there's some interesting creative choices, and some interesting costume design, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I will definitely give them that for at least the first hour and 40 minutes. It seemed less like, oh, we've got to cash in on Erased popularity, and more that, hey, we're fans of this story, let's try to do this thing. Or at least some of the people behind it seemed like they were fans.
And then the last 20 minutes happen. We're immediately thrown, like, the entire time throughout the last 20 minutes, we're just screaming, what the fuck is happening?
We were it was literally just back and forth of, what?
Just what?
What?
There may have been some actual pauses of the film involved.
There was definitely one pause.
Yes, to rewind and check.
Not even a rewind on my part. I rage quit the movie for a minute.
Oh yeah, you did.
And fucking threw my headphones and had to storm out of my fucking room in anger. I'm not even a super diehard Erased fan.
The door closing.
yeah. I literally asked. I was like, James, are you okay? I heard a slam. I'm hoping you didn't throw yourself off the roof.
Yeah, no,
onto a crash pad.
I threw my fucking headphones on my desk and I stormed out of my fucking room to get a goddamn Rockstar because I was like, no, man, I need a cool, refreshing beverage to deal with this horse shit.
Okay. Can you explain the ending and then specifically notate the moment that caused you to stomp out of the room?
Yes.
Because the ending is such a blur to me that I don't remember which part it was.
It's a fever dream.
Yeah.
So, as Kat said, when Satoru goes into the river, he wakes up 15 years later, losing 15 years of his life, right? That's how it is in the manga, that's how it is in the anime, that's how it is in the Netflix adaptation. In the movie, apparently he just wakes up after the car crash from the start of the movie with no indication as to what has transpired during the last 18 years, because it's now 2006. It's the year the movie started in. It's no indication as to what the fuck is going on. Like he literally just found out who the killer was thrown in the river, and now it's 18 years later, and it's acting as though he just got hit by the car saving that kid.
Ooh, wait. Can we also talk about the Yashero confrontation scene? Real quick?
Yeah, sure. Bring that up, because I gotta get my anger out.
Okay. So in all of the other adaptations, Yashero actually traps Satoru. He's stuck in the car. His seatbelt is broken in such a way that it cannot be undone. And part of his final moments in 1988 are him trying to escape and free himself and get out of the sinking car. In this one, they stop at a bridge. And both of them just casually walk out of the car, talking about how Yashero's murdering a bunch of children.
Yeah,
and then he yeets 10-year-old Satoru out the fucking off the bridge.
No restraints, not holding on to the jacket.
Nope.
Just taking a stroll with him and going wow, you fucking got me,
Yep. Yeah. And
wow.
And Satoru's not maybe he's dangerous and I shouldn't be anywhere near him because he's murdered a bunch of children. But nope.
So he wakes up and the scene plays out similar to the scene before, except for instead of Irie in the hospital with him, it's a pregnant Kaio. And because Hiromi is not in this adaptation, we have no idea who the father is, for all we know, and because we have no idea what transpired in the last 18 years, for all we know, Satoru got Kaio pregnant.
Yep, and they never clarify.
They never bring it up. And Kaio is acting very wifey or girlfriendy to him, at least that's the vibe we all got, so we have no fucking idea what the
but
fuck
then
is going on.
Immediately he runs back home, and it's his mom in his like bachelor pad. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no way are you married in this tiny apartment.
Who knows?
Like,
As a successful manga artist, who knows? Who knows? It doesn't matter. Time is a flat circle. So, anyways, he then goes up to Kenya, who had like 5 minutes of screen time as a kid, and he's like, yeah, you know, we gotta track down the murderer, and then fucking Satoru tracks down Yashero to the moment when he and his mom interrupted Yashero from kidnapping a kid before they realized it was Yashero.
Mm-hmm.
And Yashiro's like, oh, hey, you know, you found me. And Satoru's like, yeah, I found you. Smash cut to them standing on top of a fucking building for their big fucking no scenes in between.
Where is this building?
Nobody
We don't
knows.
know.
Who the fuck cares?
We have no idea. Nobody
like,
told
fuck
us.
you.
Outworld.
yeah, they're just in Outworld.
And then yeah. Oh, and keep in mind also throughout this adaptation, it keeps showing fucking hamsters, because in the anime and I guess in the manga, part of it is like, you know, he had these when he was a kid or something, or when he was younger, he a classmate gave him these hamsters and he decided to drown them. And when he came back later, he found one of the hamsters standing on top of one of the drowned hamsters trying to survive, and he kept that hamster as a pet. And it's somehow tied into the story that he read, where it like, you know, people had like a spider's web above their head or whatever, and Yashiro was able to see.
There was like a sinner in hell who had showed mercy to a spider once. And so the Buddha sent a spider thread down as an act of mercy to this sinner, and the sinner tried to climb it, saw other people trying to climb it after him, and tried to like knock them off, and then the spider thread snapped.
Yeah.
And essentially that's part of his whole motivation as a killer. It's the only thing that's touched upon as part of his motivation for the anime. And I think it works great.
Yeah,
in the manga, it's just a part of it. Like, it's just, yeah, he's got Spice. That's the hamster's name. He's got the spider threads.
He sees spider threads above people, and that's how he picks his targets. That doesn't happen in this fucking movie. They just show the hamster because fuck you. Hamster literally has nothing fucking to do with anything. It's just fucking there. It's just, hey, you remember this? You remember this? We thought it was like, okay, so they're doing foreshadowing for the big... No, fuck you. Eat shit. It's there for fucking nothing. And Yashiro goes basically, oh yeah, I kill kids because I don't want them to have a bleak future, because fuck them kids. They're gonna have a horrible life. And... Which okay.
I hate that that's the ending for this, because that is... do you guys know the play The Pillow Man?
No.
Okay, so do you guys know Martin Mcdonough, right?
Yes.
No.
He's okay.
In
Bruges,
you guys do.
He's
Seven
in Bruges,
Psychopaths.
Seven Psychopaths.
Yeah.
So he's a screenwriter now, but he also has he started as a playwright. And The Pillow Man is one of my favorite of his plays. And in it, to make a long story short, it is a story about a writer who is he lives in a totalitarian country, and he's taken in by the police and questioned about a number of child murders that are being committed that seem to be based on his unpublished short stories.
Okay.
And one of those short stories, the only one that's been published, is this one called The Pillow Man. And The Pillow Man is literally about a man made of pillows whose job it is to find sad adults in their in their waking life and go back in time to when they were children and convince them to kill themselves so that they don't have to live their horrible lives.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it is very The Pillow Man is a very, very dark play, but it's one of the things I absolutely love because it's so twisted and good. And yeah, then the end of the Pillow Man short story is that the Pillow Man decides that okay, I'm done. I've lived through so much suffering. I want to end it too. I want to give myself the peace I've given all these other people. So he goes back in time to when he was a kid and convinces himself to kill himself. And the last thing that he sees is all of the kids that he's convinced to, like, you know, end their lives early so they don't have to suffer, coming back to life, suffering anyway, and then dying, like you know, committing suicide like years later as miserable adults.
That's lovely.
It's so sad. But like that's like I'm like, how dare you invoke the Pillow Man for me in this terrible, terrible miscarriage of an anime adaptation.
So then, after explaining his motivation, Yashero pulls out a knife, and we're like, alright, how trashy is this shit gonna get? Is he gonna, like, are we gonna get a knife fight? No, Yashero just goes, I'm gonna cut my throat in front of you on top of this fucking building. And Satoru is like, nah, bro, don't do it. And he tries to stop Yashero from cutting his throat, and in the struggle of trying to get the knife away from Yashero, Satoru gets stabbed in the throat. And that's when I rage quit. That's when I stormed out of the fucking room. Because I was like, no.
I thought so.
No, this is so fucking stupid. And then I came back and we continued playing. And the cops just show up.
Yep.
Somehow, along with Kenya, and nobody's helping Satoru. Satoru's just laying there bleeding out, giving his final fucking monologue, and it's only after, like, he kind of collapses again.
Oh, by
do
the way,
they run over to help him?
It's a monologue about how the teacher was the one who inspired him to be courageous, and it's like, no, he's not.
No, he's not. And then after this fucking just train wreck, it cuts to 10 years later. So it's now 2016. And they're at his gravesite, although at first glance it's like almost as if they're having the funeral now, but it's just it's just the 10th anniversary of his death. We're gonna hang out at his grave, and it's fucking his mom and Kaio and Kaio's 10-year-old daughter, who we still have no fucking idea who the dad is. It could be Satoru's daughter. Kenya and a bunch of fucking Randys, who I don't fucking know who they are. Maybe Sawashiro.
Kenya, the two other like friend kids who never even got names.
Yeah, maybe Sawada was there.
Yes, Sawada was there and Yuki was there.
And
even though they never even talk about how Yuki, like they never even talk about how he's in jail for this.
Yeah, Yuki was there, and then they show his grave, and they do their best to hide the dates on the grave with flowers, but you can still see the 12, so it's clearly somebody else's it's not even a fucking prop. It's not a fucking prop even. It's just someone's grave that they just photoshopped Satoru Fujinuma's name onto. And then it cuts to fucking Irie, and she's reading Satoru's manga, and it's just literally the erased manga.
Yep.
And then cut to credits.
The thing. I clapped.
Yeah.
We were just.
It's the erased manga in the guise of Wonder Guy. Which was the show that he watched as a kid. So it's just like, what? What does it mean?
It's just. It was so fucking like
God.
I only just saw Erased a week ago. I'm not a super devout hardcore fan. I just watched it, and it's a really good anime. It's something that maybe I'd consider reading the manga. I'm considering reading watching the Netflix adaptation. I'd probably rewatch the anime at some point. You know, maybe it'll grow to be one of my favorite fucking shows. I don't fucking know, but I am just the last 20 minutes of this movie made me so fucking angry. God damn it!
Oh man.
Let it flow through you.
Yeah.
I hate you, Kat! I want to revive to a week ago when I saw the fucking movie was a thing and not do it. God, fuck.
If only we could. But I'm
Can
glad
I
we did.
revival back to before this travesty happened and redo it?
Can we all revival back to 4 hours
morning.
ago and just all say like, maybe we shouldn't watch the
Let's just do
live
the
action
pod.
movie.
Let's just do the anime. Let's just fuck.
Oh man.
Fuck.
Yeah.
It's
I for me,
God
a really
damn
bad
it.
adaptation. Well, I guess it depends. Like, I actually kind of had the same, like, a similar reaction that I have for this as I had to a certain American anime's live action adaptation that will remain nameless.
Dragon Ball Evolution?
But M. Night Shyamalan was involved.
Oh,
yes. Yeah. No, I know exactly.
A lot of people were furious, and I was laughing my ass off because it's just it's so bad that I almost feel like it doesn't even deserve my anger. I'm just like Jesus Christ, you guys just like. It's like you tried to do a backflip and just sailed right off the roof, and
there's no reason to get angry.
Killed yourself.
There's no reason to get angry at Tekken
so spectacularly. Yeah, you can't be angry at it.
You can't be angry.
Exactly.
You can't be angry at Tekken.
And God. And like you touched on the fact that like a lot of it was so rushed, but it did feel like a lot of those early scenes were trying to be faithful to the source material. And that kind of just points to the fact
faithful
that, like,
to a detriment.
Yeah, exactly. That sometimes when you do an adaptation, it's more important to consider the
spirit.
The spirit. What the media you are adapting to.
Yes.
Over the exact material that you're adapting.
Yeah, I think another good example is going from the Crow graphic novel to the Crow movie. They're two radically different things.
Yeah,
but the movie still has that theme of sorrow and depression and despair.
Yeah, we had talked about Annihilation as a good example of it. They're not trying to adapt the books. Lee mentioned that he really likes the books and the movie like doesn't even really try to adapt it. It just kind of keeps a little bit of the spirit and works its own thing into the very visual medium that is filmmaking.
Yeah. The movie keeps the general spirit of the book alive in that it's this isolated world where evolution seems to act a little differently. They don't know exactly why or what's going on. And we just get to kind of watch the bizarre events unfold, and they unfold in completely different ways. And I feel like for people who started with the book, that the film just completely missed the mark, and people were upset with the adaptation. They were upset with the very strangely different third act. But it was the best thing to do because it's a very I don't want to say impossible, but it's a very difficult book to adapt. It falls into the thing that I often bring up. I might have brought it up on the podcast before about adapting Lovecraft.
Yes. Yeah.
Adapting something that is so much better suited for just remaining in the viewer's mind than being put into a visual medium. Which
is why my favorite Lovecraft adaptation is Reanimator, because they're really not even trying to directly adapt, and also their source material is probably one of his most easily digestible because it's not really
fucking bonkers
cosmic horror. Yeah. But still, my reasoning is it's not really it's Lovecraft almost in name alone, and the rest of it is kind of its own beast of we're taking inspiration and heavily altering it to be its own thing.
Yeah, and it's something that when you're doing adaptations like this, it's very easy for a fan base to get defensive about the thing they care about and to lose sight of what's trying to be done. With something like Erased, where you have traditional, a little less than 30-minute long episodes, 12-episode runtime. So you're looking at roughly, just for sake of argument, 6 hours. Yeah. And if you're trying to convey that entire plot in a third of that time, you're going to need to cut things. And yes, it's going to suck as a hardcore fan of the source material to see that happen, because there might be things that get cut that you really enjoy. Yeah. But if it effectively aids the whole flow of the story, then it's a necessary sacrifice. Just like revival, it is a necessary sacrifice for the greater good.
The greater good.
Enjoyment is more important than faithfulness.
Not having a stupid fucking ending is important too.
We didn't need it to end with a knife fight on top of like fucking Tokyo Tower or something.
Like Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, just completely missing the mark. I will say I think part of the problem too was in what they chose to I was commenting this a couple of times while we were watching. They chose to add some scenes or like lengthen some scenes specifically between Satoru and Airi that I feel like were almost in direct criticism to the fact that the anime has her in a very reduced role. And like I personally, if I were adapting this, I actually probably would have cut Airi entirely. And this is coming from somebody who I really like her as a character in both the anime and the live action show. She's my favorite part of the live action Netflix show. And she's great in the anime. She fulfills her role very, very well in the anime of like kind of being the one anchor for Satoru in the present. But honestly, I feel like if you're keeping with the spirit of the manga and you need to cut something, she's probably the easiest thing to get rid of.
So Kat,
you have Satoru be completely alone in the future. He doesn't have anything. He, basically he gets into this accident. His mom comes back, reminds him of this horrible thing that happened to him in childhood. She gets murdered, and then he revives back, and then, basically figures out that to save my mom, I have to figure this out. I have to solve all this stuff. Right. And then you have this great, you can keep the arc of him learning to, not wear a mask, not keep himself hidden, but actually be a friend, be a good person, be a person who sacrifices for his friends. And then you have the end of the show the end of the movie rather, being he's back in the present. And he lost 15 years of his life, but he actually has friends. And he has people he saved and loved and, all that stuff.
Right.
It might actually be, a little more impactful thematically. And, again, I'm not saying that it doesn't work as written right now with Airi in it. It totally does. But if you're gonna cut 6 hours of material reasonably, you need to start trimming stuff. I think one of the things that we mentioned or one of the things we mentioned in the moment was we would have cut the whole when he revives back to the present after failing to save Caillou the first time.
Yeah, the house fire needed to go.
Yeah, and I think just in
the
general,
manager.
If you just cut her entirely, you could still tell a very compelling story. With some reflavoring.
The movie came out the week before the series finale of the anime.
Interesting. Okay.
So it seems like they're both in development at the same time. But I know the manga fans were upset at the anime's ending. But I can only imagine going to see the live action Erased and seeing that ending, and then you're like, okay, well the anime is going to be a faithful adaptation then. And then, so I can see that perspective, but at the very least, the anime ending is not so fucking stupid.
Yeah. I think if were I a fan of the manga originally, and I saw two adaptations kind of fail to faithfully recreate the finale in the book, I might also be upset. But I will say for context, and I'm not trying to shit on people who like their faithful adaptations, but I had mentioned this earlier when we were still discussing off podcast. When I was a kid, I read the Born trilogy of books. Yeah. Or I think it's Born Identity, Born Supremacy. I read those two books. I read them before the movie came out. So when the movie came out, I was super excited because I was like, yeah, like I can't wait. And the movie is very, very different from the books. And as a kid, I was very upset by this. I was like really pouty and like angry and like pointing out all the inconsistencies and just really like, oh, they should have done this, they should have done that, they should have done that. And at some point, like nobody ever said anything about what I was saying about this, but at some point something clicked in me where it was just like, it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Right? Where
that was
like,
me in the Harry Potter movies actually as a kid.
Yeah. Where it was just like, yes, there are inconsistencies, but the story of the Bourne Identity in both the book and the movie are both good. They're just different. Right?
That's also like your experience with Erased, for example, of seeing the anime first and then like whatever. That kind of also mirrors for me, because I know this is another big controversy within the anime community. When I saw Full Metal Alchemist, the original anime, I'd never read the manga. I knew nothing of the manga. So for me, that story, even though I know they made up their own shit, worked. The only thing that didn't work for me was the movie, just because it ended on it like a sort of an unresolved cliffhanger of just them like, hey, now we're together, but like they're not back in the same time, like they're not back in their world, sort of thing. But like it was its own thing. Sure, after discovering the manga and seeing Brotherhood, my opinion slightly changed. Where I'm like, yeah, the original source material is better, but like, I don't hate like the original anime for doing its own thing, even if in the grand scheme of things, it's like not as good. But I can also maybe imagine, the manga fans seeing the original anime adaptation and being like, the fuck is this shit?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes those adaptations can go, they can go into very, very different directions, and they can be surprisingly good. But, they can also be complete train wrecks, like the original anime adaptation of Hellsing. It's 13 episodes, and after the first 6, they went off into completely original territory. They didn't delve into the main antagonist, Millennium, who are the Third Reich, essentially. And instead decided, we're going to come up with a new, original big bad and dedicate the entire last half of this season to fighting him. And it was a fucking train wreck. It was a train wreck. They traded in this great storyline, kind of like, on the grisly reality of war, and gave us like a one-shot villain named Incognito who like was birthed from black magic on the dark continent, which is just Africa. It's like, this is weird.
Okay.
We don't need this.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think that like having learned that lesson as a kid, that like Lee, I don't know if you were here for that, but I was talking about what I had said before about the Bourne Identity, where as a kid I was really pissed that it was different from the book, and then at some point, like without anybody really saying anything, it just clicked for me that it didn't actually matter.
Right.
And I think part of that is that even if I like, I liked both. I liked the Bourne Identity movie, the Matt Damon one, and I liked the book. And one existing does not negate the other. I think that was like the important lesson I learned from that, was that just because, it wasn't exactly the way that I wanted it adapted at the time, doesn't mean it's not a good adaptation, and it also doesn't take away from the original for me.
Yep, there can be two separate things, and if you like the first one better, the first one's still there.
Exactly, and I think
if you like Christopher Lambert's Raiden, then the '95 Mortal Kombat is still there.
He's still there, baby.
That is my Raiden forever.
Being useless and not saving anyone.
Being sad. I mean, to be fair,
Same
he's
as it
just as useless in the new movie.
That's true.
It's just he's more of a dick and less sassy.
Oh man.
But yeah. I've grown to appreciate 2021 Raiden a little more, but I still appreciate the cornball cheese of Frenchman Highlander Raiden.
That's excellent.
I do not appreciate James Remar's Raiden though.
No.
Although I like James Remar.
I appreciate his stunt double though.
Hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
I guess closing thoughts.
Watch the anime, folks.
Yes.
Closing thoughts.
It is a small time investment. We binged it in a day.
Yeah.
And honestly, you won't want to stop once you get started. That's how good the pacing is. Like, I am definitely willing to split it into parts. I first watched it in parts just because I had other things to do at the time, but every time I've rewatched since has just been a sit down, watch for 6 hours, and it's beautiful. I love it.
Closing thoughts. Kat, I hate you.
You love me,
but
I introduced you to something glorious and also something unbelievably abysmal.
Closing thoughts. Just watch the anime. It's really good. We saw it on Netflix. English dub was really good. That's how we watched it because we were lazy shits.
That's the other thing is so I originally watched it in Japanese with Will. Will is my fiance. He's very he grew up in Japan. And he's very into anime and particularly likes, dubs over subs, which usually I do as well. And I we watched it first in Japanese. The Japanese the Japanese voice actors are great. I love them. And then at one point I wanted to introduce it to another friend who does not like reading subtitles. So we found the dub for him. And we just discovered that the dub is like as good. It's like it's exactly comparable 1-to-1. That they're both just like brilliant.
Yeah.
The voice acting is so good. So. Yeah,
it's on Netflix and Crunchyroll. Watch it. It's good.
It makes it very accessible to anyone. Like if you don't like subtitles, if you don't like reading while you watch your anime, you don't have to.
Yeah. The only complaint I can say is it cock teases me with hockey. It sits there and is like hockey throughout like the entire fucking anime, and then I get like 5 minutes of hockey in like episode 11, and I'm like, okay, I'm glad we finally got hockey, but for fuck's sake, why? Why?
The only adaptation that actually has the adaptation with the most hockey in it is the movie.
I got excited. There was a Zamboni. There were people playing hockey. It was great. And then it immediately went downhill.
Oh boy!
It immediately went fucking downhill.
The final confrontation on top of Tokyo Tower should have been some street hockey.
Oh my God! They just end with a street hockey match.
Yeah,
it should have been the final confrontation.
I know you killed all those kids.
The final confrontation should have been Yashero getting run over by a rogue Zamboni.
I'll see you on the rink, you motherfucker.
Yeah. We're gonna play by fucking slapshot rules, where it's fist fighting. Oh, God damn it. And also, today I realized that these Philistines didn't even know that fucking Mighty Ducks 3 was a movie. Like, oh, it's Mighty Ducks 3, James. Like, there already is one. Fucking plebeians.
We can't all keep track of imaginary sports.
Shut your whore mouth. Shut your whore mouth.
Lee, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yes. The anime is spectacular. It's a small time investment, 12 episodes. Beautiful storytelling, beautiful visuals. You can basically forsake all the other adaptations, I guess, except the manga if you want a little extra material. Mm-hmm. But it's just one of those shows that it sits nicely. It gives you some material to think about, and I don't know, even with a lot of the heavy themes that encompass the show, you do leave it overall feeling very positive. You leave it with a very bright outlook. Mm-hmm. Even though it's a show concerning kidnapping, child murder, child abuse, which they do not shy away from, which is very admirable. Mm-hmm. It leaves you feeling optimistic about life. It's a very powerful, moving story condensed into a tight little 12-episode package. I highly encourage everyone check it out. And I'm very thankful to Kat for showing it to us.
Yay! I'm so glad that you guys enjoyed it.
Because now it's my turn, and I'm gonna pick some dog shit. I'm gonna
ready.
pick some booty.
I'm fucking ready.
I can't wait to say, Lee, I hate you.
Another thing I wanted to mention in closing is kind of so I don't know too much about the much of the like fan reaction to. I do know a lot of people I've mentioned Erased to have agreed with me that it's a really good anime. But I will say that shortly after I watched it for the first time, I came across some criticism on the internet that people were mad that Satoru and Kaio did not end up together at the end.
Fuck that.
Those are the same people that are mad that Corpse Party doesn't have a harem ending.
Yes, exactly. I fully I'm not here to shame anyone for their opinions or what they like to watch, but I think if you think that Kaio and Satoru should have ended up together at the end after he was in a coma for 15 years,
you missed the point.
You missed the point. Yeah. You didn't understand. You didn't go. Your homework is to go rewatch it and write me an essay on the themes of Erased.
Honestly, like for me, like just a closing statement on that fact. Even if hypothetically there's some romantic tension between Kaio and Satoru when they're 10 or 11 years old, I think it's far fucking more powerful that she got with somebody else, like, because time moves on, and it also signifies, even if that were the case where, like, you know, like they're teasing, oh, these two are gonna end up together or some hypothetical horseshit, like it was meant to be shit. It really emphasizes the sacrifice that Satoru made by going into the coma for 15 years. I'm not in the camp of, oh, Kaio and Satoru should have gotten together. Like, even if there was some cute shit between them, some wholesome shit, at the end of the day, I'm just also, you know, in the same way that Satoru is throughout the entire anime, get a grip, you're 29 years old.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, no, get the shit out of here. And it also leads to, like, the powerful moment of Satoru meeting Kaio's baby, seeing this life that wouldn't have existed. And from two people who would be dead. Like, for me, it's more of the power of friendship thing. That's my thing.
Yep.
The real Erased was literally the friends we made along the way.
The real Erased.
Hell yeah.
The real Erased is Satoru's guilt for failing to stop 9/11.
God.
And Sawada's beard.
And Sawada's
beard. Yeah, actually, I love that we've barely touched on Sawada whatsoever, and we have the beard presumably as
fuck Sawada. But his beard, yo.
We just have an unexplained fake beard as part of the thumbnail for this episode.
All right. So this is another hopefully successful episode of Gooncast. We'll be back next time with something. Might be Resident Evil Village if y'all finish it fast enough.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if you want to announce it yet, but yeah, I think we're all.
Well, we announced Erased after MK, so
that's true. We're all playing and enjoying Village right now, and I think it'd be a really cool next episode to discuss Village and maybe a little bit of a Resident Evil retrospective.
Yeah.
To worship giant vampire mommy with the rest of us.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then also at some point, you know, another video game theme where it would be Ace Attorney and Yakuza, the live action movies. Because I decided to pair those up because same director. Yeah, Takashi Miike.
Oh, yeah.
Who does wonderful work.
Yeah,
he's great.
He is a complete mad lad. And there's some other stuff. There's some other stuff that I have already told them about, like that we could do. And there's some other stuff that I've even had suggestions from. Like Nika really wants the two of you to go through Nier, so because he wants to hear a big discussion on Nier.
Oh, that'd be cool.
But that would require
a time
huge
commitment,
fucking
though.
time sink. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to digest and talk about film than it is to do whole gaming experiences, especially franchises.
Yeah.
Resident Evil's just one that we've been lucky enough to grow up with.
And we all have it at the same time, and presumably it is not a 30 to 50 hour long game with multiple endings and deep lore. tied into
No,
Dropping Guard.
Village has a. I checked the stats. Village has a 10-hour campaign.
Okay, cool.
Oh wow. Okay. Nice. That's good.
Cool. Maybe there's other ways to cover it, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We still have all sorts of other shit planned. Like we got to do Ghost Adventures.
Oh my god.
All 900 episodes. All 900 episodes of Ghost Adventures.
All do Grave Encounters.
Oh yeah, Grave Encounters. We'll talk. We'll talk about Ghost Adventures while talking about the parody of Ghost Adventures.
All right. Let's negotiate. Let's negotiate. Grave Encounters and Demon House.
Oh, perfect.
So
I'm down for that.
Because Demon House is the Zach Baggins documentary in giant air quotes.
Oh my god, let's fucking do it. All right, we signing off?
Yeah, and then we'll do 80 like Ghost Adventures is another thing.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say yeah, we're gonna sign off and then immediately start watching Ghost Adventures. I'm no, James.
No, let's talk about this.
No. Where we're going, you're not having free time. All right,
Saber. Where can the fine people out there find you?
Fuck.
I think his brain is still broken from.
I'm just so mad.
That was not a difficult question.
No,
I didn't ask you
mad.
the square root of something. I asked
mad.
you what your Twitch channel is.
Twitch.tv/Saber00307. I stream almost every other day, or sometimes every day. Don't watch.
Oh, yeah.
It's just I'm dead inside.
Do watch. He's fantastic.
I'm gonna go fucking hang myself in the bathroom.
Lee
But you can stream that live on Twitch.
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
True. Yeah.
You probably won't get banned.
Yeah.
You'll get banned. Do it in a hot tub. You won't get banned.
Yeah, there we go.
Hey, there you go. And you'll get like 30,000 views.
Yeah.
All right. I'm the Attack Cat on Twitch. Currently streaming a little bit of Village. Possibly going to get a little bit more involved in streaming. Maybe doing some art stuff. Who knows? We'll see.
Fucking better stream Nancy Drew.
Things are in the pipeline.
There you go.
I didn't buy you that Nancy Drew for nothing, Cat. You're streaming it, goddammit.
Oh, I'm streaming it. I just need to. I'm finishing Village first. That's my. I want to finish Village first. Then you'll see a very, very old, very jank Nancy Drew game.
Good.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
And I'm the Valley Jester. You can find me at www.leealdercreative.com. I have a new article up on the troubles of adapting Lovecraft from page to screen. And you can catch me streaming at twitch.tv/valleyjester. And currently playing through Resident Evil Village. And in the pipeline, we're going to do a mini id retrospective with their engine. We're going to play Heretic, followed by its sequel, Hexen.
Cool.
All right, so I guess that's it. So in the meantime, y'all take care of yourselves. Don't watch the Erased movie, and if you do, get fucked.
How would people find it?
Where there's a will, there's a fucking way, Cat.
I'd like us to fade out on a tweet that was put up today by Yoko Taro. And I quote, "All will turn for the worst in the end. I know that." Have a great week, folks.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Fuck.